Most people walk through life like they're promised a full story arc, like there will always be time for a rewrite, a comeback, or a chapter where it all finally makes sense. And that illusion, that subtle lie we keep telling ourselves, is the biggest reason we stay stuck. We say things like, "I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right time. I just need to figure a few things out first." But deep down, we know we're wasting time we don't actually have. The clock doesn't pause when you hesitate. Life doesn't slow down when you're afraid to move. While you're overthinking your next step, someone else is walking it. While you're waiting to feel ready, time is deciding without you. And here's the part that hits the hardest. Not making a choice is still making one. Delay is a decision. Indecision is a direction. You're either stepping into something or slowly slipping out of alignment with what could have been. There's no neutral in this game. We talk about someday like it's a place we'll eventually visit. But the truth is, for most people, someday becomes never. They live in a cycle of almost healed, almost disciplined, almost brave enough, and before they know it, life has already written the ending, and they were just bystanders in their own story. See, there's a certain comfort in believing that time is endless. It lets us feel okay about wasting today. It justifies our avoidance. It helps us sleep at night, thinking we'll get to it eventually. But what if you knew the countdown had already started? What if you knew that June 23rd, 2025 wasn't just a random date? It was a line in the sand, a checkpoint, a moment where life will ask, "What did you do with the time I gave you?" Some people won't like hearing this. They'll say it's dramatic, too heavy, too much pressure. But maybe that's the problem. We've normalized softness where we needed intensity. We've gotten so comfortable with the idea that everything will work out, that we stopped working it out ourselves. Hope is beautiful, but hope without action is just denial wrapped in a pretty bow. You don't need a wake-up call. You've had dozens already. That one conversation you didn't have, that opportunity you let pass because you didn't feel ready. That version of you who exists only in your imagination, he or she is waiting. And every day you delay, you drift further away. Ask yourself honestly, if nothing changes starting now, what will your life look like in 10 months? Will you be proud of the way you showed up? Will you respect the choices you made with the time you had? Or will you wish you had started today, on a random, quiet day like this, when no one was watching and no one was clapping, but something inside you decided no more waiting? You're not running out of time because the calendar says so. You're running out of time because you keep believing there's more than enough, and that belief, it's the silent killer of dreams. Most people don't fail because they weren't talented enough or smart enough. They fail because they thought they had more time to get serious. They kept stretching the deadline in their minds until the opportunity expired. We think transformation happens when the stars align, when the conditions are perfect, when we feel inspired. But transformation doesn't care about your comfort. It shows up the moment you choose to stop lying to yourself. It begins when you stop hoping for a different future and start building it, brick by brick, starting today. And look, I'm not saying you need to overhaul your life overnight, but you need to stop treating your days like loose change, tossing them around without thought. Each one is a currency. You're spending your life one decision at a time. The question is, what are you buying with it? Because when June 23, 2025 arrives, it won't care about your excuses. It won't ask how afraid you were or how much pressure you felt. It will simply reflect back to you what you chose to do with the time you were given. Nothing more, nothing less. Most people have mastered the art of looking okay. They've perfected the performance. They know exactly how to smile in photos, how to say the right things in conversations, how to show up just enough to keep others convinced. But here's the uncomfortable truth. None of that matters when you're alone. None of it saves you when the lights are off, when the audience is gone, and it's just you, in silence, with yourself. That's when the mirror stops being a reflection and becomes a confrontation. You can lie to the world, you can curate the feed, fake the energy, wear the mask, but you can't lie to the mirror. You can't hide from the voice in your head that knows the difference between what you're saying and who you're being. It sees every compromise you make, every promise you break with yourself, every time you choose comfort over growth. It sees it all. And the most painful part isn't that the mirror exposes you. It's that you realize how long you've been the one hiding the truth from yourself. We like to think the problem is out there, that it's the job, the relationship, the timing. But what if the problem is closer? What if the biggest obstacle is the version of you that you've gotten used to protecting? The version that would rather stay safe than be seen. The version that avoids pain even when it means avoiding purpose. The version that doesn't want to risk failure, so it settles for pretending. You can tell the world you're fine. You can convince others that you've got it under control. But you can't outrun your own reflection. The mirror is always honest, even when you aren't ready to hear the truth. And maybe that's why most people never really look. They glance, but they don't examine. They touch the surface but never go deep, because if they did, they'd have to admit just how far they've drifted from who they promised themselves they'd be. And here's what's worse, the longer you avoid the truth, the easier it gets to perform. You become fluent in pretending, and after a while, you forget you're pretending at all. You wake up one day and realize you don't even know who you are without the act. That's when the real damage begins. Not when others don't believe in you, but when you no longer believe in the version of yourself you buried underneath all that pretending. This isn't about judgment. It's not about shame. It's about responsibility. Because the only way out of this cycle is through honesty. Raw, uncomfortable, inconvenient honesty. And that doesn't happen on a stage or in a moment of inspiration. It happens in the quiet places. In the mornings when you look in the mirror and choose not to look away. In the evenings when you sit with your choices and don't reach for a distraction to escape them. Self-honesty is the first act of real freedom, and it's terrifying. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you admit that you're not living the life you know you're capable of, you can't keep pretending that the small, safe version of you is enough. That's when change begins, not when it's easy, but when it's no longer an option to stay the same. And some of you already know what needs to shift. You've known for a long time. It's not that you're lost. It's that you're pretending not to see the path that's already in front of you. Because walking it would mean letting go of the character you've built. It would mean facing the mirror and accepting what it's been trying to show you all along. So if you want to be free, if you want to live a life that's yours, not one performed for others, then it starts here, not with a plan, not with motivation, with truth, with the courage to stand in front of your own reflection and say, I see you. I know what I've been doing, and I'm done hiding. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment the real you begins to live. Most people are still waiting to feel like it, waiting for the energy, waiting for the right mindset, the right sign, the right wave of motivation to finally get them moving. But the truth is, if you're relying on motivation, you've already lost the game. Motivation is a spark, it's a flash. It comes and goes when it wants to, and if your life depends on that flicker, you're going to stay stuck in the same cycle you've always known. The ones who actually move forward, the ones who build something real, they don't rely on feeling like it. They've learned to show up regardless. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not loud. It doesn't post itself online or ask for recognition. It's quiet, consistent, sometimes brutal. But it's also the most liberating force you'll ever experience. Because once you stop needing to feel good in order to do what needs to be done, you become unstoppable. Think about that. How much of your life have you put on hold simply because the mood wasn't there? How many mornings did you know exactly what needed to happen, but you negotiated your way out of it the moment you woke up tired. You see, we romanticize growth. We like the sound of transformation. We love the idea of becoming a higher version of ourselves. But when it comes down to the day-to-day actions, the repetition, the boredom, the discomfort, most people check out because they've confused change with inspiration. They think that being excited for a few hours means they've made progress. But excitement doesn't build habits. It doesn't sculpt your character. Repetition does. And here's where it gets real. Nobody is coming to hold you accountable. Not your friends, not your family, not your coach, not life. At some point, you have to be the one who decides, no more skipping the hard stuff, no more giving in to the voice that says, just one more day off. You have to build an internal structure so strong that even on your worst days, your foundation doesn't shake. That structure is built by doing the thing over and over again, especially when you don't feel like it. Because every time you show up when it would have been easier to quit, you prove to yourself that your word means something. And that's the real win, not the result, not the external reward. The victory is becoming the kind of person who doesn't negotiate with discipline, who doesn't make excuses when it gets uncomfortable. There's something powerful that happens when you realize that your actions don't need to be approved by your emotions. You start to understand that feelings are just weather, they pass. But your habits, they stay, they shape your reality, they write your story, and eventually they become your identity. Look back at the moments where you actually made a shift in your life. Was it because you felt good? Or was it because you got tired of your own patterns? Was it because you finally said, enough? Change doesn't need a cheerleader, it needs a decision, and then another after that. Stack enough of those, and suddenly you look back and realize you've become someone different. Not because of one big breakthrough, but because of 1,000 small choices when no one was watching. Everyone wants clarity. Everyone wants peace. Everyone wants strength. But few are willing to do the boring work that creates it. The cold mornings, the uncomfortable conversations, the disciplines that seem invisible until they compound into something undeniable. That's where freedom is built. Not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet, repetitive ones. So stop chasing the next motivational hit. Stop hoping for a breakthrough when you haven't earned the basics. Build your structure, brick by brick, day by day. Let it be boring, let it be difficult, but don't let it be negotiable. Because once you build that kind of consistency, life stops controlling you, and you start directing it. Where do you go when things fall apart? Not physically, but emotionally, mentally. What's the place you retreat to when life doesn't go your way, when someone disappoints you, when plans unravel, when you feel exposed, misunderstood, or alone? Most people don't even realize they have an emotional home, but they live in it every single day. It's not made of walls or bricks. It's made of patterns, emotional defaults, built over time. And the truth is, that home is either a fortress that gives you strength or a prison that keeps you stuck. You've met people who always seem to return to anger, no matter what happens. Others go back to blame. Some disappear into sadness, shame, numbness, or denial. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Eventually, they find their way back to that familiar emotion. It's comfortable, predictable. It's what they know, and it's not always dramatic or explosive. Sometimes it shows up as silence, avoidance, overthinking, distraction. But if you look closely, it's always the same emotional pattern, over and over again. The problem is, you can't change your life if you don't change the place you emotionally live in. You can read every book, listen to every podcast, attend every seminar. But if your emotional home hasn't been upgraded, you'll always return to the version of you that chooses survival over expansion. And here's the catch: the older that emotional home gets, the harder it is to leave. Not because you're not capable, but because you've decorated it. You've made it feel like yours. You've defended it. You've told stories about why it's valid. And now it's not just a pattern, it's your identity. But let's get real for a second. If your emotional home is built on fear, or resentment, or anxiety, then, no matter how much progress you make on the surface, something will always pull you back. It's like renovating the outside of a house while the inside is still falling apart. Sooner or later, the foundation cracks. And most people don't notice until it's too late. They wait until they're overwhelmed, until they break down, until life forces them to face it. That's why awareness isn't enough. You can't just know where you go. You have to rewire it. You have to choose, again and again, where you want to live. And that means getting uncomfortable. It means replacing the habit of shutting down with the discipline of opening up. It means replacing control with surrender, replacing blame with ownership. It means deciding that even when life is chaotic, you will not return to the emotional patterns that kept you small. And it doesn't happen overnight. You'll fail. You'll slip. You'll find yourself in that same emotional room again, sitting in that same old chair of frustration or self-pity or doubt. But this time, you won't unpack your bags. This time, you'll notice it. You'll feel the pull and choose not to stay. That's how you change your emotional home, not by erasing the old address, but by refusing to live there any longer. Eventually, you build a new place, one that's rooted in calm, in strength, in presence, one that can hold pain without breaking, one that doesn't need external validation to feel worthy, one that doesn't get hijacked by every disappointment. And when you live there long enough, that becomes your new default. You start reacting differently, thinking differently, carrying yourself differently. Not because life is easier, but because you've changed the place you respond from. This is the kind of work most people avoid, because it doesn't look like progress on the outside. No one claps for you when you respond with grace instead of rage. No one congratulates you when you hold your ground instead of spiraling into anxiety. But you'll know, you'll feel it, and that's the reward, knowing that no matter what happens around you, your internal world is stable, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. You built it, you earned it, you chose it. Because the real shift doesn't happen when life gets easier. It happens when you become someone who no longer crumbles when it doesn't. There comes a moment when you have to stop asking blind people to validate your vision. It sounds harsh, but it's one of the most liberating decisions you'll ever make. We spend so much of our energy trying to be understood, trying to get approval, trying to make sure we're seen in the right light, by people who were never built to see us clearly, people who are trapped in their own fears, their own limits, their own broken lenses. And then we wonder why their feedback keeps us small, why their opinions sting, why their lack of support hurts more than it should. It hurts because we gave them too much power. The truth is, not everyone will understand the path you're walking, and they don't need to. What you're building, what you're healing, what you're becoming, it's personal. And if you keep needing others to clap for it, you're handing them control over your pace, your focus, and your confidence. You're saying, I'll believe in myself, but only after you do. And that is a prison. Some people can only love the version of you that doesn't challenge their comfort. The version that stays in line, stays quiet, doesn't grow too loud or dream too big, because your evolution reminds them of everything they haven't faced in themselves. So instead of cheering for you, they downplay you. Instead of supporting you, they question you. Not because you're wrong, but because your growth unsettles their stagnation. And if you're not careful, you'll shrink yourself just to stay accepted by people who are secretly afraid of watching you rise. This is where most people get stuck. They know deep down they're meant for more. They feel the pull. But the fear of being misunderstood, judged, or abandoned keeps them playing small. They start filtering their truth, diluting their message, softening their vision to make it more acceptable. But when you do that, when you dim your light so others feel comfortable, you don't just lose their respect, you lose your own. There is no freedom in being liked for who you're pretending to be. There is no peace in gaining approval by betraying your purpose. And the worst part is, even when they approve of that watered down version of you, it still doesn't feel right. Because deep inside, you know it's not you. It's the edited version you created to fit in, to not ruffle feathers, to not be too much. But you are meant to be too much for the wrong people. You can't build something meaningful while constantly asking for permission. You can't be both free and dependent on external validation. At some point, you have to choose. Are you here to be understood or to be real? Are you here to make everyone comfortable or to live aligned with what you know is yours to do? And this doesn't mean you stop listening, stop learning, stop growing, but it means you stop bending. You stop trying to explain your soul to people who only speak fear. You stop justifying your passion to those who lost theirs years ago. You stop asking people who've never built anything how to build your dream, because they'll always project their own limitations onto your potential. And if you're not anchored, you'll start believing them. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to defend. Just move, quietly, powerfully. Let your life become the proof. Let your growth do the talking. Let your results echo louder than any opinion ever could. The people who are meant to walk with you won't need convincing. They'll recognize your vision because they've fought for their own, and the ones who don't see it, let them watch from a distance. Or not at all. It's not your job to drag everyone with you. Some people are chapters. Some are lessons. Some are just mirrors showing you what happens when you live without purpose. Thank them for the clarity and keep moving. Because the longer you wait for others to see you, the longer you stay hidden from yourself. So stop shrinking, stop editing, stop seeking permission from people who wouldn't recognize your truth even if you screamed it. Walk forward, not for applause, not for attention, but because your path is yours and no one else needs to approve of it for it to be real. It's not enough to wake up. A lot of people are awake. A lot of people know exactly what they should be doing. They've read the books, watched the videos, gone to the workshops. They're full of insight, self-awareness, and spiritual language. But here's the truth. Awareness without action is useless. Being awake doesn't mean anything if you're still sitting still. Clarity without movement just becomes another distraction, another excuse to delay, another reason to stay safe in theory instead of living in practice. You don't change your life by knowing better. You change it by doing better, by rising up consistently, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient, because those moments are the real test. Not the ones when everything feels aligned. Not the ones where you're inspired or supported. The real test is when it's just you. No noise, no crowd, no momentum. Just you versus the old version of yourself that's begging you to settle back into what's familiar. And that voice will show up. It always does, the voice that says, "Take it easy today," or "You've done enough," or "Who do you think you are to chase this?" That voice has one job, to keep you the same. And if you don't rise, if you don't meet it with grounded action, it wins. You go back to sleep, not physically, but mentally, spiritually. You go back to old patterns, old excuses, old stories. And it's not because you're weak, it's because rising takes energy. It takes presence. It takes a level of personal accountability most people aren't used to holding. This is where people get stuck. They confuse awakening with transformation. They think just because they've had a realization, the work is done. But the work starts there. That insight you had, that shift you felt, that's just the beginning. Now you have to build it, brick by brick, breath by breath. That's where growth lives. Not in the realization, but in the repetition. In the actions you take when no one is watching. In the choices you make when it would be easier to slip back into who you used to be. There are a lot of people who know what it means to be awake. But very few are living like it. Because rising up means you stop hiding behind what's comfortable. It means you stop blaming your past, your parents, your pain. It means you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start honoring the one you're in. No more delay. No more soon. No more after this, then I'll start. You've said that too many times already. And every time you said it, you were hoping your future self would be stronger than the version of you that keeps avoiding it now. But your future self is built by what you do now. There's no shortcut around that. You either rise or you recycle the same cycle over and over again and call it just figuring it out. But deep down, you know what needs to change. You know where you've been lying to yourself. You know what action is long overdue. And the only thing standing between where you are and where you could be is a decision, a single, clear decision to rise and not look back. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. Rising isn't a straight line. You'll fall, you'll doubt, you'll feel resistance. But each time you choose again, you stand up again. You remind yourself that you're not here to be a spectator of your own potential. You're here to embody it, to live it, to make it real through action, through discipline, through the uncomfortable, beautiful grind of showing up fully, even when it would be easier to hide. So don't just wake up. That's not enough anymore. Not in this season. Not with what's at stake. You have to rise up. Not once. Not when it's easy. But every single time life gives you the chance to shrink, you rise. Because the version of you that you're becoming isn't built in your sleep. It's built in your rising.